All right, welcome to the podcast. On today's show with Mike from Breads. Thanks for joining. Welcome to Expo West week.
Yeah.
Awful for some. A lot of work ahead of you. So we're here kicking it off. So for people who don't know, what is Reds?
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. So Reds is a premium frozen burrito and breakfast sandwich brand. So Red was the name of my dog. My wife made a pretty good burrito when I was in business school, and I just fell in love with the idea of starting a business, and never in a billion years did I think it would lead me to burritos. And somehow or another, made a few for an entrepreneurship class, and people fell in love with them, and I fell in love with the idea of trying to, kind of get really, really good at one thing.
Yeah.
And little did I know that was going to be 24/7 for the next 15 years. And
so what year did you start the idea?
So June 15th, 2009.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my daughter, who actually turned 16 on Thursday.
Oh, wow.
Unfortunately, this is like the 11th or 12th time I've missed her birthday because of Expo. So
sure.
she gets her driver's license on Thursday, and I started the business when she was 3 months old.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so what was your first step? So this is early days, 2009, the housing, or the market's not great. It's about I think it is a crash.
Yeah.
Obama's in. Obama's giving like $25,000 to first-time home buyers.
Yeah.
I was one of those people. Yeah. Not a great time in the economy. And so opportunity maybe to delve into entrepreneurship. And so for you, it was, what did you start with?
You're giving me way too much credit that I actually put all those things together.
What did you start with? What was your first product?
So our first products actually were really big burritos.
Okay.
So I love the idea kind of really quickly out of the gate. I don't think I was smart enough to figure out how to process food.
Okay.
So, I was like, oh, well, there's this great technology called freezing. Mm-hmm. And, let's try and make like this really high quality meal, and freeze it. And then, effectively that kind of is perfect, preservation.
Yeah.
And then, when a consumer actually gets it, we're able to make it as close to kind of a home cooked meal as possible. And then hopefully they don't screw it up on the back end through over microwaving or bursting or whatever. But thankfully over time with the evolution of the beginning it was like a panini press, and then a toaster oven, and now air fryers have become super popular. And so that's like really, really helped kind of those of us in the frozen world. Was
the business always like D2C?
Yeah, it was always D2C. So we've never sold direct to consumer.
Okay.
So the logistics and the cost of shipping direct to frozen or direct to consumer is brutal.
Yeah.
Because it's not like it can slack out a little bit.
Right.
Like it's got to arrive totally frozen. So you got to use a ton of dry ice, and it's overnight and it costs like $150. And
how many SKUs did you guys launch with originally?
So we launched with, I think, I tried to launch with 4.
Okay.
So they were big 11-ounce burritos, right? So my lucky number was 11, and it was a big old meal. Okay. Yeah. So it was a turkey, chicken, steak, and vegetarian.
Okay.
Right. I was like, you got to kind of throw in a vegetarian SKU into the mix.
Yeah.
And it went great right out of the gate. Well, that's actually a total lie. Because we've got meat in the product, it means you've got to make it in a USDA regulated facility.
Okay.
So I ended up finding a co-packer. This was in the Northeast at the time. And our co-packer made 3,000 chicken burritos.
Okay.
And then he went bankrupt. So I tried to launch with 4 SKUs, but only got 1 out of the gate. And so we kind of literally broke into the back of the building. I had to figure out how to get on a forklift, left a check on the counter, and
took
hijacked the 3,000 burritos, put them in a truck.
Shit.
And
wow.
Then I had 3,000 burritos to sell.
Yeah.
So I went,
Where did you keep them?
Well, yeah. Thankfully, we actually rented a little bit of freezer space at a local storage place.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I always love this. Okay. Yeah. Keep going.
Well, I was just going to say, then we kind of I took case by case and went to the local grocery stores and sold them in, did a ton of demos, Wednesday nights after bingo and Sunday after church. And thankfully we found someone else to make the other flavors. So eventually, after the first, call it 6 months or so, we had 4 flavors to sell.
And were you bootstrapping this at the beginning yourself, you and your wife?
Yeah. So my wife, actually, we give a ton of credit for kind of the initial recipe, but she is one of the more risk-averse human beings on the planet. So
interesting.
Yeah, absolutely had nothing to do with supporting or helping. Well, I guess she's certainly been very, very supportive behind the scenes, but she's a nurse, thankfully. So
she's basically just saying, don't fuck it up, please.
Yeah, please, God. And don't talk to me about it because it gives me so much stress just even hearing about it. But she was a nurse, so actually I didn't pay myself for the first 3 or 4 years, and she supported us. Yeah, which was awesome.
That is awesome. And when did you at some point know you were onto something? When was the moment for you where the sales have gotten to a point where you're like, okay, I should start maybe even considering paying myself?
probably year 4 or 5. So our, probably like any consumer business for sure, because that's all I can really speak remotely intelligently about. But, it goes through like a ton of iterations, right? So the big burritos didn't work, but we didn't know that until we had already, been in kind of thousands of shelves. And all of a sudden we were like, uh-oh.
Like it was too big?
Yeah. It was like $5 or $6, and the consumer in the frozen, aisle was like, that was just too big of a commitment.
Interesting.
So we kind of downsized into something that was a little bit more approachable from a size perspective and like a price point. So they were more like, $250-ish.
Okay.
And all of a sudden that, changed the trajectory pretty dramatically.
And what did you learn about your customer base? Like, how are they ingesting them? What was it like a lunch thing? What was the thing that you picked up on that maybe you hadn't figured out at the beginning?
That people, when they're buying frozen in particular, don't want to overcommit, right? They want something that's super convenient, right? So over time, we've kind of really found our niche is in convenience, right? So in our little world, we basically talk about handhelds.
Okay.
Right. So a handheld is effectively like a burrito, breakfast sandwich, something that's super easy, non-committal. Like, for me at work, I'll eat a burrito and a breakfast sandwich for lunch. Yeah. And then kind of mid-afternoon, I'll do like a different burrito or breakfast sandwich. So they're like easy to,
Sure. What I love about these stories is for any entrepreneur that started a business like 10 years ago or more, the world has changed 3 times basically. Right. And so the thing I love, and we were sort of talking about this. So 2008, 9, the standard item in people's house is like the microwave. Yeah. And so for someone to warm it up, pretty easy thing. So here you are now in your business, 2014, right? You're approaching that time. And like Facebook is a thing. Instagram's about to go. So now it's like the social media landscape is changing rapidly. At some point, the air fryer continuum will hit, and that adds a whole nother level for your business. Yeah. So what's going on the marketing side for you, if anything? Like, is this like top of mind?
I wish. I still to this day don't really have digital or social media in any way, shape, or form. Like for me, the journey was always about the quality of the product, because I was like, all right, I don't think I'm smart enough to figure out social media. I never really felt comfortable kind of being out in the world and trying to, build my own brand kind of, synonymous or rather in parallel with building the Reds brand. So, I was kind of like, in the beginning when I started, I didn't know anything about operations, right? I didn't know anything about food manufacturing. And so I thought I'd be doing like sales and marketing. And then 5 minutes later, I'm like, well, I don't really know what marketing is, right? And there's obviously so many different kinds of marketing, but I kind of just focused on like the aspects of marketing that you see in front of you, right? So like the product and the packaging and like the color and the fonts and the names, because that to me was where I felt comfortable, and like I've been obsessed with that ever since. But anything outside of that, like social media and or PR and conversations like this, I just totally shied away from, because I'm like, I don't really know how that world works. So like the sales calls were relatively easy, right? I was like, I'm kind of an obsessed founder who's like crazy about the quality of the product. So like I could go in front of a customer and vomit my passion. But what I quickly found is that I ended up gravitating really quickly towards the operations side, because I was like, okay, well, if we're going to put the highest quality product in the world, out there, like that has to happen, right? And when I was starting the business, I thought that was going to be like a magic bullet. You like hire some operational geek and they were going to figure it all out, and the product was going to be amazing. And and I couldn't have been more wrong. Like that's where the magic happens, right? And so I've spent probably 80+% of my time in operations. And at some point along the way, I was like, all right, like if we're going to be really good at this, we've got to kind of own the fact that we're an operations organization. And like, I think it's like 90 to 95% of our employees are all in operations.
The thing that you're saying that I think people miss is like, you're saying it in a really humble way where it's like, you didn't know social media or these things. But I think the thing I've assessed from the greats is their ability to say no to the things that can easily distract them. Yeah. Right. So if I said to you right now, like, hey, Mike, Mookie Betts and Reds should do a commercial together. Yeah. Hard for you not to get excited about that. Yeah. Right? Because it's like all the things, how fun. Yeah. But it doesn't go to the core competency of like your product, the taste, the operations, and just delivering it to the people that are already buying it. And the ability to say no to this is honestly, I think, the whole game. Because as an entrepreneur, there are people who will want to distract you all the time.
Yeah.
Take your money. A bad Yelp review has a way, we were talking about this, right? Has a way of totally demoralizing somebody. And now you're just focused on this like one negative naysayer. And it's like, no, just keep going back, delivering the product for the people that love you.
Yeah.
And it's like the focus of that is so important.
Yeah, man, I couldn't agree more. And it's kind of nice to actually hear it, hear it, you know, from someone else. But I think in some respects, obviously over the years, like I love talking to other kind of, you know, food or consumer entrepreneurs, because I'm like, man, if I can offer like one tiny little piece of advice or something that's helpful, because it's a super hard competitive space. But,
Totally.
you know, I think so many people are so excited about social media and are so excited about like becoming big fast and think that they're going to generate all of this pull from, you know, from marketing or in particular social media. And I'm like, maybe.
Right.
But like, here's what I do know. If you don't have the product right. And, you know, an actual, like in a good package that's on the shelves with the right, with like a good price point, and you get that, you know, you focus on those things and then you actually get it on the shelves and see how it moves, right? To, you know, listen to the consumer feedback. Are they like, I hate this flavor. I love this flavor. I love this one, but it needs to be a little bit more of this or that or whatever. Like if you spend the disproportionate amount of your time and energy on that out of the gate, then, you know, it's kind of like the analogy I've always used over the years is it's like, you can't pour gasoline, you know, on embers, right? You actually got to get a fire going. And so, you know, this is probably embarrassing to admit, but we didn't really pour any gasoline for the first 13 years. Like,
that's amazing.
We didn't do any marketing, right? We did a little bit of digital or social, like, but pretty benign. And so it's just kind of now in the 14th, 15th year that like we've hired some amazing people to kind of help think through that. Because I was like, I don't know how to do it. I know how to be obsessed with the product and work with the operations team to like really, and the procurement team to, you know, to really, really, really drive the results of the quality of the product.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how to do this other thing, so I like totally shied away from it. But I think eventually, you know, and you've got so many different kinds of founders, right? You've got like CFO founders, you know, you've got sales founders, marketing founders, and then you've got, and I didn't know it at the time, but I think I fall in this category, which is like product founders, right? And so like we're obsessed with the product, right? And it's just something that we'll never compromise or sacrifice on. But eventually you've got to find somebody that's like really, really good at kind of the other pieces. And from a marketing, like in a communication and a digital strategy, it's so important to have the right kind of guide, if you will, that like helps bring out what's inside from an authenticity and communication style.
That's right.
So that when you're putting stuff in the world, it like is true.
It speaks to you.
It speaks to me. It speaks to the brand.
Story,
and so that finally is starting to happen over the last.
Brings you back to your kitchen, your wife.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. At what point did you start launching other products? So here we have the egg which in front of us, the croissant and the burritos. Yeah. At what point were you like, okay, the market's changed, or maybe there's too much competition? Maybe you gave your competitors a look into something, and now it's time to create something else.
So we have failed at just about everything. So it's the humblest story on the podcast. It's probably like, you know, eventually you launch a bunch of stuff and you fail at a bunch and you kind of figure out what works and what your niche is. And, you know, after we failed at Big Burritos, I was like, all right, we're like on death's doorstep here. And it was like, you know, me and a couple interns and thankfully some supportive investors. And it was like, all right, we went smaller, right? So we did kind of similar flavor profiles that were super, you know, relatively simple, at least from a naming perspective. Because what I learned in frozen is like, you get too exotic with a name. Like I want to go buy a taco at a truck down the street. Like you can get crazy. Like people love carnitas and barbacoa and even Chipotle can get away with that quite a bit. But for us, in frozen,
they have to know what it is.
Yeah, man, they don't go too, they don't stretch too far.
Yeah.
So you can actually infuse a ton of flavor, but you just got to kind of keep the naming relatively simple.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we did, you know, 4 snack burritos, and I was like, all right, we're not doing anything else. So for 4 years, we just focused on trying to make the 4 best snack burritos possible.
Wow.
Which in hindsight sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, really? Like we couldn't have done something else faster?
Yeah.
But eventually, like in our world, they call them turns, right? So like how often are people buying it? How many units per store per week and all that stuff? And so they started getting like, you know, a lot higher, and we started getting really well known for that one thing. And retailers finally started calling us to be like, hey, we want more.
Okay.
And so then I was like, all right, maybe we
you
can
got some traction.
We got some traction.
Going.
We got like a reason to, to survive and to hopefully thrive. And
wow.
And so then I was like, dude, I really want a breakfast burrito.
Yeah.
And so we launched our first couple breakfast burritos thinking that they would just sit next to our burritos in the same section. And like a bunch of retailers put them in the breakfast section. All of a sudden we're like, oh my God, now we're totally screwed. Now we're in two places.
Okay.
But it ended up being like one of the best accidents that ever happened to us. Cause like now, basically 50% of our business is breakfast and 50% is snacks. So and
it's like essentially the same product.
For a burrito,
way,
it's the same. Yeah. I mean, it's eggs, meat, cheese, know, and a bunch of kind of fun spices and stuff. But like,
that's nice.
From a production perspective, very similar.
And what did you learn? Which one sold more?
So breakfast has been one of the fastest growing categories, certainly in like the premium, because what's been kind of nice in breakfast, which has been strange how it's been developed, but like the way grocery stores merchandise things, particularly in frozen, is you had like your frozen section, you have your snack section, but the snack section is like super undefined. Sometimes it's an entree, sometimes it's in snack. And then you've got like a lot of grocery stores had like a natural organic section, right? Which was like aisle 32 down by the bathroom that like basically nobody went to. And so we had a lot of stuff over in that section. But like breakfast, for whatever reason, pretty quickly got put into kind of the main breakfast section.
What year was that?
This is like probably 9 or 10 years ago.
All right. So 2015-ish, 2014. Okay.
Yeah. And so you were getting just a lot more exposure.
Totally.
With those items because they get a lot more traffic.
Yeah.
Right. And so anyway, so fast forward, like those sold really well. And we were like, oh, I guess we need more breakfast burritos. And so, we started developing more recipes in that category. And then we started, kind of having to make sure we had enough items in both snack and breakfast. Mm-hmm. And then, buyers have a lot of feedback, right? And some buyers have amazing feedback about what they're, what we should have on the shelves. And obviously we listen to consumers all the time, but we kind of realized after failing at entrees, we failed at big burritos, we failed at a bunch of different things. We were like, all right, we're pretty good at like this handheld thing, right? And I think that's kind of where consumers are resonating, which is like, it's premium, super like clean label, natural organic, all the stuff that we already offered. It tastes really good. And now it's like super simple, and convenient. And so we were like, what else in the space fits really well with that same kind of profile? And we had a buyer who was like begging us to do a breakfast sandwich.
Okay.
Which I really, really, really did not want to do because I'm like, dude, we're really good at making burritos.
Right. It's a bit of a pivot, a bit of a risk. Yeah. So the buyer saw something in the market. People are wanting some breakfast sandwich option. And is trying to convince you to...
I think this particular buyer was actually much more motivated about, I'm tired of, the 800-pound gorilla in the space. Like, and I want them to have, like, I want an item that's as high quality as your burritos, and I want that in my breakfast section.
Wow.
Yeah, which was obviously super, super humbling for us. So I was like, all right.
And what year was this? Around the same time?
This is like 5 years ago.
Okay, so 2020.
Yeah,
okay.
So we've only been in the breakfast game since 2020.
Do you think that had anything to do with COVID? Because it felt like when COVID hit, at least from like the podcast perspective, the freezer section just blew up all of a sudden. It was like something that I would say most of today's 18 to 26-year-old during COVID, if you open a freezer, you're going to find a beer glass and ice and some ice cream.
Yeah.
COVID hits, all of a sudden it's full.
Yeah.
People are buying freezers all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And so it was like a rediscovery of the freezer section.
So I don't even know if it was a rediscovery as much as it literally was a discovery, right? I mean, the hangover of the 80s, like processed frozen stuff was like deep.
Yeah.
Man, that was just kind of like...
Interesting, yeah.
We had to unwind that, and we've been trying to unwind that. And thankfully there was like, Amy's is a fantastic pioneer in the category and have been really kind of slowly changing the perception. And then, and then a couple brands like Red's have come along, and like, it really is in the grocery store one of the absolute best ways to get the highest quality product to a consumer, right?
Yeah.
Because like we can flash freeze ingredients or, that are kind of peaked and processed at the peak of freshness, the peak of nutritional value. And so like we don't need any preservatives. We're not trying to play this game that the rest of the grocery store has to play, which is like timing.
That's right. It's so tough.
If I'm shelf stable, like how long is it going to last? If I'm fresh, like it's, once that thing is picked, it's a time bomb to when it's like, how do I get it on the shelves and before it's rotten, and then consumers don't want it, and then I got to throw out 30 to 40% of it. So like in our world, Yeah, man, our waste factor is like, I don't know, less than 1%. So it's super efficient as well.
So walk me through, you're making this journey to a breakfast sandwich of sorts.
Yeah.
What happened? What was your first version of that?
So, I mean,
and what did you decide to make? Like, what did you want to make?
Man, I wanted to make everything. So like I grew up in the Northeast where like, man, every deli has a great breakfast sandwich.
Ah, so good.
So good, right? You're from Boston. Like,
so good,
they don't have, I live in Nashville. They don't have delis.
That's weird.
And so like getting a good like bacon, egg, and cheese is
the best.
Yeah, we don't have that. It's
That's
brutal.
So funny.
So I was like, all right, I'm going to try and recreate like my experience growing up, try and bring that to the freezer section. Now we've got to take our spin on it, right? Because it's got to be the right size, and then also we had like certain, proteins that sold really well for us. Like, we started, like we've got chicken chorizo, we've got turkey sausage. We hadn't done anything with bacon yet, which has been new for us, which has been really fun. So anyway, we like scoured the planet to try and to create like a clean label breakfast sandwich. And it was really, really hard because like the premium breakfast sandwich category really didn't exist.
Yeah. What does clean label mean in the way you use it? What does that mean?
So, for lack of anything scientific, I've always basically viewed as clean label as your average moron, which is me. If I don't know exactly what's on that label, it's not clean label.
Got it. Okay.
Right. So it was like super pronounceable, simple things. You're like, yep, I know exactly what that is.
This reminds me, I had a high school teacher, and when he talked about war, this is going to sound so bad today, but back then it was in the 90s, it was different. Yeah. So he'd say, can't pronounce it, bomb it. If he couldn't pronounce the country, he was like, bomb it. You can't say that today. No. That was like a pre-internet world, But anyway, you're saying if I don't know what it is, don't put it on the box.
Yeah, same concept. Same concept.
Yeah. That guy would get canceled today.
I probably shouldn't be laughing this hard.
No, it's funny. It is
very funny.
The language has changed for
that was, I grew up in I was in middle school in the 90s as well, in high school. So I know exactly what you're talking about. So it was very simple.
Okay.
Right?
It is simple.
Yeah. And then, with clean label, right, increasingly, because the way I think about like, clean label, organic food, is effectively how we did it for thousands of years, right? And then some point in kind of the 60s, 70s, we decided that we were too smart for Mother Nature and we were going to process the hell out of everything. And we were going to create all these kind of more or less, kind of fake ingredients that are going to add all these values, right? From shelf life to, using less actual animal protein. You can use soy protein. And anyway, so we were like, well, we're not going to play that game, right? We're just going to try and make it the way that we think it should be done, which is like, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not like I was trying to create an angle for consumers. It was like, I want to eat this,
right?
And I want to feed it to my own kids, right?
Simple.
So, that was about it. And so then, obviously, with all of that has become like all the certifications to basically confirm that you make it how it should be made, which is like antibiotic and hormone free and non-GMO, and organic. And so we've done a really, really good job over the years of like navigating through the supply chain to find all the best suppliers. And there's a lot of really good ones out there. So So anyway, we eventually we had been developing burritos for 10 years, and all of a sudden we're like, all right, well, now we got to figure out how to make a breakfast sandwich, right? But we already made a ton of we used a lot of eggs and a lot of kind of breakfast sausages and stuff. So we found and developed some really, really good egg patties that, I mean, you wouldn't believe how many iterations kind of our head chef and R&D team and I went through just for like an egg patty. And it was like probably hundreds of like, millimeters difference of salt and pepper and white pepper, black pepper, the whole 9 yards. So anyway, we found, got the meat patty right, got the egg patty right, and then we had to like kind of develop clean label American cheese, because American cheese just has like the best meltability for a breakfast sandwich. And so we've got cheddar, we do all sorts of, but like for the first ones, they were American cheese. And we did, we eventually kind of went back to the drawing board with the supplier and like developed this kind of clean label American cheese, and ended up going through like 100 iterations of the right millimeter thickness so that it melted perfectly. But anyway, we couldn't find really good bread, right? There's a ton of really good bread out there, ton of amazing bakeries, but bread was not meant to go in a microwave, period, right? So we were really, really struggling to find something that would perform in the microwave that didn't have like a bazillion kind of additives to it to try and protect it from the microwave, if you will. And anyway, so I just got pissed off one day and put 2 egg patties around the meat and the cheese and put it in the microwave and was like, holy shit, this is really good.
A protein power snack.
Yeah, man. So that became our first breakfast sandwich.
The Egg Witch.
The Egg Witch.
I love it. I've tried it. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good, for me, the protein, it's quick. It's just a quick little.
Yeah. I mean, my wife's gluten-free and so are obviously millions of other people. And so it's like, they've been sacrificing so long and, for the kind of the quality and the taste. And so, it was super, super nice to be able to offer something that's like high in protein and no carbs. And
when I was having this thing, I was like, why isn't this thing at like every Starbucks? Is that something that you guys would consider? I know it's a bit of a distraction, but it's also like, there's something interesting about that, right?
Yeah. If they want to put a Red's brand on it, sure.
Yeah,
I'm all in.
That's true. I guess they would more be interested in white labeling it.
Yeah. I mean, when you get into the whole like food service private label business, it's just a bit of a different game, right? We've got our own manufacturing facility. We make everything ourselves. And pretty quickly when you're starting to make things for other people, it ties up a lot of resources, a lot of capacity. And so, we've just tried to really focus on doing our own brand.
And where is the company today? What's on the agenda for 2025?
Well, I mean, I'm proud to say, which in real life probably doesn't mean a lot, but in 2024, we moved to the #2 burrito company in the world, which was, pretty cool.
In the world?
Which sounds way more dramatic because basically no one else in the world makes burritos besides in the U.S. So,
in the Gulf of America, you're the largest fish.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. There's no bluefin tuna in the Gulf. And breakfast sandwiches, I think we're like 4th or 5th. So we're obviously pretty new to that category. So, I think they're both really big categories, right? And so, we kind of talk about this, with our own team, and I think for me, it's always trying to find this balance of, what I want more than anything is to really be known for and continue to provide the highest quality product, right? And so, our plants is in southeastern South Dakota, and and I spend a disproportionate of my time out there, kind of working with the operations team to, to continue to push on trying to make sure we're the best at what we do and how can we make it better and more consistent on a day in and day out basis. And so, I've never really cared how big we get. Our goal is to get to $1 billion. And that's nothing more than the fact that I just think that we provide a better product. And so I would like for more consumers to have that option and that experience relative to kind of compromising with some of the other things.
It's a great way to look at it.
If we're really good at what we do, then I think let the customer decide. And like, we're trying to be super, super good from, I've always thought about this from people like, well, if you're premium, then you can't be efficient, right? And I'm like, I don't agree in any way, shape, or form. I think you can I think you can be the best of the world at what you do, and you can be the most efficient. And so we're always trying to find that balance. But at the end of the day, that then enables me to provide really good value.
Yeah, that is something people say a lot. Yeah, I hear it all the time. And I don't know enough in that world, but it makes me, I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. The entrepreneur in me goes, that can't be true.
Yeah. I mean, I think the limitation is that our ingredients cost more.
Right.
So we'll always have that limitation.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Right.
That's a choice. The consumer
having
might
said
want
that,
it.
as we get enough scale, the raw material landscape has to improve and evolve. Like it's most of the supply chain has been.
That's a great way to look at it.
To basically support what has become the biggest markets, which are more commodity markets. And everyone in the natural organic space, is always kind of touting all these certifications and, having conversations about regenerative agriculture and all these like amazing things. But the unfortunate reality is if you don't have enough scale, your impact is so minimal that it's virtually non-existent. So as we've gotten more scale, we now are in a much better position to be able to have, to drive a much bigger impact. So like those are the type of things that are super, super exciting to me for the next chapter.
I love that. Give people a window into Expo West. So you've been going for a long time.
Yeah, man.
How have you seen the food landscape change?
Expo is always like, I'm always, we kind of joke. Some of my team is super excited to go and the other team's kind of dreading it. And, and I'm always somewhere in between because I'm like, it's 75,000, 80,000 people or whatever it is. And it is intense, right? And it's like this blend of intensity of these amazing conversations with your buyers who you don't get to spend that much time with. And, and obviously given the amount of time I've been doing this, like I love that energy, you know, that you get to talk about your products and like, what are they working on and why, and how can we actually partner, right? And it becomes like kind of a bit of a cliche that people overuse. And we've been doing this long enough where when you find that buyer that actually will partner with you and you deliver on your end of the bargain, like it's super fun to be a part of.
Yeah.
Because I'm like really obsessed with the fact that if a buyer is going to give us an opportunity, like we better, it's not all of a sudden like, you know, hey, we're like clapping our hands. We got on all these shelves. I'm in another X thousand number of stores. It's like, okay, we were just given this opportunity to get 2 items, 4 items, whatever amount of items on these shelves. Like we need to be crazy disciplined in making sure that those items perform really well so that buyer looks good and, you know, and we can kind of earn respect in that partnership. But Expo is also like, it comes in waves of fads, right? I mean, we were talking about it before, like it's always kind of fun to watch, but you know, it's a little bit like watching a car accident because you know, you see it kind of coming and then all of a sudden it happens. And, you know, we saw it with granola, we saw it with kale, and, you know, gluten-free went a little bit crazy there for a few years. And obviously the more recent one is plant-based. And I'm like, I'm not smart enough to catch, you know, to be part of a fad. So I'm like, I think if we just like make really high quality stuff that's convenient, then I think at the end of the day, we'll be all right.
I love it. Where can people support you? Where can they buy the product?
So we're in most, you know, retailers in the country.
Go to the website.
Go to the website. Yeah.
Store locator.
Probably should. Yeah. RedsAllNatural.com. We actually have a great kind of, you put in your zip code, it'll tell you exactly what items we have and what stores,
Love it.
And kind of how far away they are from you. So that technology has gotten really good over the last handful of years. So that's super helpful. And yeah, man, so we're going to continue to try and get some stuff out there, try and bring some fun innovation into the world.
I love it.
Continue to fail and iterate and
keep going.
Yeah.
Mike, thank you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
And looking forward to what Expo West can do for you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, share with your friends, your family, or anyone you might think might benefit from the conversation we've had today. And if you haven't already, please take a moment to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. We'd greatly appreciate it. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more people who can benefit from our discussions. The best way to stay connected with us and get the latest updates on future episodes is through our social media channels. You can find us at Startup Storefront. We'll be back next Tuesday with another great episode. See you then.